major spoiler alert for the entire Honkai Star Rail Penacony arc, as well as discussion of upcoming updates. Enjoy!
Can one thing in Penacony be real? Just like one thing.
The other characters told us death wasn't real in the dreamscape. The devs told us. And then in 2.0 it was, and now it isn't again.
I am indeed a trailblazer. I require blazing trails everywhere I go. If I don't blaze trails, I die.
Yes, a driver's license!
Where the strong govern the weak.
How about where a baseball bat governs a Halovian face? Okay, yep, yeah.
Are you calling yourself a train engine? Are you calling yourself a mechanical being? It keeps confirming it! How did this happen?
He literally did just let there be light us.
Does anyone want to hit Himiko, please? Just boop her on the nose. You and your boop scenes? Can you blame me? She needs the boop so that she can do the bomb.
It's time to tell you a little bedtime story.
I want you out of my head right now. You freaking black chicken. What's happening? What is this? That was the fake out of all fake outs. What? Huh? Do not tell me that you put me through the emotional turmoil of freaking Kakavasha for nothing. Do not tell me. Don't do that. Hello, internet people. 2.2 was absolutely amazing. My sanity has been tested, and I am not entirely sure it survived. But on this side of it, wow, it feels like the Penacony arc is finally coming to a close. I mean, sure, we've still got a major incoming IPC issue to deal with, and there'll definitely be a couple filler patches before we move on to our next destination, including a brand new simulated universe expansion, which I am so excited for. But yeah, as far as the actual story goes, Penacony feels like it's finally going back to normal, minus one megalomaniacal Halovian. So why is my brain itching? I don't know, guys. Ever since we beat Sunday for the second time, I keep feeling like I'm forgetting something, and I can't for the life of me remember what it is. Welcome back, Trailblazer! Did you find out anything about the 3 Trailblazers I mentioned? Why, yes we did. We found out that Mikhail made an absolutely incredible dreamscape and is revered by thousands to this day. We even met his grandson. Sort of. That's amazing! And Tiernan? Turns out he saved the entirety of Penacony from the Swarm and went on to run with the Galaxy Rangers. We ran into a friend of his who told us about him. Trailblazing to the end, as always. And Razalina? Well, she... Oh. Yeah, we kinda forgot about Razalina, didn't we? Roughly a third of the 2.2 update was devoted to Misha's background as the Watchmaker. Freaking called it, by the way! And Tiernan played a pivotal role in Acheron's story even though he wasn't strictly present, that we know of. There was some super fishy stuff going on here. I am side-eyeing this scene so hard, you have no idea. But we still know next to nothing about Razalina. All we know at the moment is that 1, she was the Express's surveyor, whatever that means, and 2, we learn from an NPC in Dreamflux Reef that she studied Memoria as a scientist. We also have 2 pictures of her, one from the light cone for Tomorrow's Journey, and the other from the Penacony Dream Pass's sticker collection. And that's really the only information we can trust at the moment. That's shockingly little for someone who's supposedly one of the most prominent figures in Penacony's history and the close friend of its founder. But as I was researching for this video, I learned there is a very deliberate reason for this, and not only do we know a lot more about Razalina than you might think, but also when you understand her, the role she plays in this story might actually be more important to the Penacony arc than the Watchmaker himself. Of all the theories on my channel so far, this is the one I'm most confident in, but I still should remind you, until it is explicitly confirmed by Hoyoverse, it is just a theory. If you're still confused by the end of this video, or you don't agree, or you have a different take, please leave a comment and we can talk about it. Now let's dive deep into the story of Razalina, the most mysterious figure in Penacony's history. So first, let me address what you're probably all yelling at your screens right now. Emma, we have more information than that. Gallagher told us all about her. With all due respect, dear viewer, no he did not. You see, there's an itty-bitty little problem with theorizing about anything involving Penacony. No one here tells the freaking truth. If it was as simple as people having agendas, that would at least be manageable, because as annoying as it is, once you understand exactly what dream someone is chasing on Penacony, they become super predictable. But my big issue right now is this man, who aside from having the ultimate scary dog privilege, was the person tasked with explaining Penacony's history in 2.1 and 2.2. Of course, they chose to wait until halfway through that info dump to tell us, oh, by the way, this guy's also a compulsive liar. Gallagher's a history fictionologist, which means he follows the eon of Enigmata, and their only known goal is to delete records, change facts, and generally make life extremely difficult for lore theorists. So we can't trust a word he says. Okay, great. Wrong. The worst part of all this is he sometimes does tell the truth. So some of this story is true, but unless we have a secondary source to fact check, we can't trust any of it. And if we have a second source, then you become an ineffectual redundancy. Tell me, what exactly is the point of you? So, to get anything done, we need another source. Okay, that should be easy. Penacony has a collection of 49 readables that you can find scattered throughout the various maps. Everything from half-written descriptions of Soulglad-induced hallucinations to the financial records of the different families. Awesome. Great. Let me just grab my lantern and take a Gandalf-style deep dive into this giant dream library to see what I can find out about our lovely Lady Nameless.
The following Thursday?
Well, Nameless turns out to be correct because these 49 books did not mention her name even once. Okay, running out of options. What about the credits then? Cause those exist. But sadly, I don't dare trust those either, and neither should you. Didn't your parents ever teach you not to trust strange credits? You have no idea what they are, or where they've been, or what they mean, or who wrote them, or if they're lying, or what purpose they serve, or if we're being trolled, or if it's another fake ending, or if we're still dreaming. I'm fine. I am so fine right now. So quick recap, Gallagher's stories are dubious at best, everyone else has an agenda to push, the readables are useless, and we don't speak of the credits. And well, that's it. That's all the potential sources we have. So is there any way at all to learn more about Razalina? Well, maybe? During the Hanu mini-quests and in one of the readables, we learn that Brother Hanu isn't just a cute cartoon friend for Clocky. He was an actual historical figure on Penacony named Hanu, who led the revolt against the IPC back when Penacony was still a prison. Well, at least one part of Gallagher's story can be proven, but if you pay attention, you'll notice Brother Hanu isn't the only cartoon character with a historical counterpart. In fact, if you list out every Clocky cartoon character with their defining characteristics, they overlay perfectly with not all, but some of Gallagher's questionable stories about Penacony's past. The IPC and the Stonehearts are Boss Stone, Professor Owl is Professor Glocks, Sunday and Robin's adoptive dad, Gopher Wood, is Old Man Wood. Clocky himself is something like Mikhail's, self-insert OC? Yep. That's what I'm going with. Sorry for that, but do you see what this means? These little Looney Tunes style cartoons aren't just cute little stories anymore. They are, in fact, the history of Penacony. Internet people, we have found our secondary source. Now, before we move on, I will admit that I nearly had a mental breakdown when I realized that Mikhail using Clocky's cartoons to obscure history, by definition, makes him a history fictionologist. But after way too many tears, I realized this is impossible, for two reasons. One being, if he is, then I just have no video, do I? But the other is, his goals are completely different. The history fictionologists disguise fiction as history specifically to cause confusion, while Mikhail is disguising history as fiction in the hopes that those who want the truth will be able to find it. His objectives are solidly opposed to theirs. Makes you wonder how he and someone like Gallagher came to be friends, doesn't it? So now that we've spent a third of the video talking about how we're going to find Razalina, let's actually heckin' find her. First things first, we need to figure out who in this cast of lovable characters is Razalina. Thankfully, if you know what you're looking for, this is as simple as theorizing gets. Whether you use process of elimination or go strictly by the connections drawn between characters in the story, Razalina can only ever be one of two characters: Captain Revolver or Miss Mirror, also known as Mirror Princess. And I mean, At this point, it's just obvious Razalina's Captain Revolver, isn't it? I'm joking. She's obviously Miss Mirror. So now, instead of smacking our head against a Razalina-less pile of information, we can literally just search the name Mirror Princess. Well, would you look at that? Not only is there plenty of information about Mirror Princess, she's actually one of only 3 characters who has a Clocky adventure named after them. Basically, in the first half of the story, a monster, which calls itself the embodiment of the unknown, comes from the Nightmare Desert to Dreamville, covers everything in mist, and runs around doing whatever it wants since no one can see to stop it. But thanks to her magic mirror powers, Miss Mirror dispels the mist and scares off the monster by showing it itself in her mirror. Because once it's seen, it's no longer unknown. So let's pause and analyze this first part. My guess is that the Nightmare Desert is the memory zone, which would make the unknown some kind of memory zone meme that emerged and attacked Penacony. However, Razalina has some kind of ability or magic that enabled her to drive the monster away when no one else could. Even with all the unknowns in the situation, pun, that seems like a pretty straightforward story. In part 2 of the story, Mirror Princess, Captain Revolver, Clocky, and a group of their friends follow the unknown deep into the Nightmare Desert to defeat it. It sets a trap for Miss Mirror and shatters her, but Miss Mirror is still able to speak to her friends and tells them to pick up her shards and fight the unknown back by showing it itself, which they did, and thus Dreamville was saved. Hooray! In more historical language, Razalina, Tiernan, cause of course that's Captain Revolver, and Mikhail followed the unknown meme into the memory zone to make sure this specific one never bothers them again, but it set some kind of trap and injured Razalina. Then, however her abilities worked, Mikhail, Tiernan, and the others were able to harness that same power and use it on the monster. I imagine there was a power of friendship moment involved.
By the power of friendship!
And they defeat the monster. The story ends with the citizens of Dreamville putting Mirror Princess back together, and she protects them for many more years. Dang, that's such a cool story. Completely sincerely, I'd love to see that as its own proper story quest. The only other place she shows up is the Hanu's Adventure readable. During a famine on Penacony, Clocky asks Miss Mirror for advice, and she says, "Fear not, with the guidance of Grandpa Glocks and the knowledge of the remembrance, we shall unravel the secrets of the dreamscape." And in the readable, it's implied that this is a direct quote from Razalina, not just cartoon dialogue. She then leaves to look for more land in the wilderness, but is shattered again by monsters. In the second credits at the end of 2.2, we're told that Razalina entered the memory zone but never returned, so that part is confirmed. But what interests me most is this mention of remembrance. Razalina had a power over this unknown monster that the other Penaconians didn't have, and while we aren't given details about how that power worked in reality, in the cartoon, it has the ability to make the unknown known. Now, currently, the only character who has a direct link to the remembrance is Black Swan, and that makes her our best source of details about how the remembrance works practically. If we look at her character details, we see that the remembrance does allow for a kind of omniscience by allowing its users to glimpse memories. If Razalina had a similar connection to the remembrance, that would have made her insanely powerful on Penacony, especially against a meme who calls itself the embodiment of the unknown. In fact, we've already seen memories used this way by Black Swan. After 2.2, we now know this deck of cards is her way of storing memories. And the first time we meet her, she uses these same cards to take down the dormancy meme. That's actually really interesting. She uses memories to fight a meme that no one else can, just like Razalina, and she does it by shattering... Wait a second. Okay, so this specific point in the video, you're either losing your mind or you think I have well and truly lost mine, which if you fall into that second category, you're not exactly wrong, but please hear me out. Even at a glance, it's super sus for Hoyo to just completely ignore Razalina. Of the 3 nameless we were told to look for, one is the backbone of the entire plot, and the second brought Acheron to Penacony. But Razalina has not only been seemingly erased from Penacony's history, we're not given the slightest indication of why. Nothing about this makes sense. But as I said in my first lore video about Firefly, when something doesn't make sense in a Hoyoverse game, 9 times out of 10, we're still lacking vital information that tends to be at the center of a mystery. So let's go through this one more time. Razalina is 1. A former nameless surveyor, 2. She studied Memoria, and we now also know she's linked to both the Remembrance and Mirror Princess. And while we all know Remembrance is connected to Black Swan, there isn't much linking Black Swan to Mirror Princess. Or is there? One of Black Swan's calling cards is this image of a princess, and in her character trailer it shows up 4 separate times. The first time we literally see Black Swan mirrored in it, the second time it's framing her, the third time it's shown alongside her Black Swan card, and the fourth time the princess card literally turns into the Black Swan card. They're even wearing the same crown. Also, there are mirrors everywhere. Besides this, we've also got this and this. This is not a picture frame. You see the shatter lines and the shards in the foreground? That is a shattered mirror. She is literally coming out of the shattered mirror. Oh, and speaking of shattered, this shatters, that shatters. We have a shatter on the beat drop, and this is only in her character trailer. There is a shatter in her skill, a shatter in her ultimate. Oh, look at that. The hands are made of mirrors. There's a mirror in her splash art. In the Myriad Celestia Revisiting of Past Dreams, she helps a random tourist find the owner of a lost mirror. A princess brochure transforms into a Black Swan brochure, and at the end we see her shatter into pieces with images of the Black Swan and princess in the pieces. And rose petals floating in the foreground. Random note, do you know what the name Razalina means? It means rose, okay? It is excruciatingly obvious in hindsight. Black Swan is mirror, princess is Razalina. You cannot change my mind. But if you can believe it, I'm not even done yet! This is gonna seem a bit random for a second, but just trust me, it'll all make sense in the end. So, roses. Back in 2.0, when the only thing we knew about Razalina was her name, a lot of people, myself included, tried to find her by looking for any new character associated with roses. And at that point, there were 2. One is Argenti, cause, you know, Idrilla, beauty, roses, makes sense. But not really what we're looking for. The other one is our friend Gallagher. This led a lot of people to decide early on that Gallagher was connected to Razalina. Now that we know he's a follower of the Enigmata, a lot of people have dismissed the roses as a red herring. Just some random symbolism to throw us off track, but I don't think that's what's going on here. Take another look at this splash art. Now that we've gone through the whole mirror princess thing, you probably noticed there is also shattered glass behind him and on the counter. That's 2 of Razalina's symbols associated with him. 3 if you count the candle, which Black Swan is also sometimes pictured with. Even if it is a misdirection, why did they choose to point to Razalina? Why not surround Gallagher with, I don't know, Galaxy Ranger symbols or clocks? Okay, let's one last time step back and think through what little we know about Gallagher. Again, we can't trust Gallagher himself, but we know from various NPCs that no one on Penacony knows who he is, even though he's supposedly head of the Bloodhound family. That's fishy. We know from Sunday he's a follower of the Enigmata, meaning his main goal is to cause confusion and hide the truth wherever he goes. And we also know from Sunday that his appearance in the dream isn't actually who he is. He took details from the appearances of different people and Frankensteined them together into a mask. A million tiny truths stitched together to form one lie. So who is the person behind that mask? What is beneath the Gallagher shell that we've been introduced to? It took a long time for me to reach this point, and once I did, it was so incredibly frustrating how simple it was. Because the answer to the question of who is Gallagher is we don't know. And that's the entire point. When I was going through the Clocky cast and drawing parallels, I might have missed a character. We are never going to have a name for the person behind Gallagher. We are never going to find out who he truly is, because Gallagher is the embodiment of the unknown. He is a memory zone meme whose entire purpose is to distort and hide the truth of everything, most of all himself. He is the creature that Razalina drove away all those years ago. He's the one who shattered her. That's why the glass shards and rose petals are featured in his splash art. Rose petals, as in a broken rose, while the actual whole roses are tossed to the floor as if they've been discarded. If I had to guess, I'd say the unknown meme made its home at the heart of the memory zone in a nest of the most obscure memories in existence. Then along came little Razalina, a person who was determined to understand the secrets of Memoria, something which, as a follower of the Enigmata, the unknown was directly opposed to. So the unknown attacked Penacony, shrouding it in mist to drive the Penaconians away. But instead, it was driven back by Razalina with her remembrance abilities, and she pursued it as far as its own nest. And although it did wound her, the unknown was ultimately defeated, at least temporarily. It lay in wait for years until Razalina left Penacony in search of more mysteries to uncover. By this time, Mikhail was the only nameless left, so the unknown emerged, not as a monster monstrous meme, but disguised as a friend. If you look at the family's investigation into the Watchmaker, they even caught on that the Watchmaker was working with a follower of the Enigmata because Mikhail had the ability to change his appearance, something usually only followers of the Enigmata can do. Gallagher was helping him. Hey, it wouldn't surprise me if the idea to hide Penacony's history in the Clocky cartoons was partially his, but I believe he was the one who erased Razalina from official record as his own personal revenge. And if I had to take it a step further, I might even say he's the reason why Penacony started to sink. Mikhail was the person who had the most influence over the dreamscape, and if Gallagher had enough influence over Mikhail, who knows what he'd be able to do. In current day Penacony, everything is a lie and everyone is a liar. Nothing is known. To a follower of the Enigmata, this is a perfect world, except for one little issue. Razalina, also known as Black Swan, is now back. Internet people, I don't think this Penacony story is nearly as finished as we've been led to believe. Aside from Sunday's demise, very little has actually been resolved. And if you follow the underlying plot rather than what appears to be the main one, it looks like things are just getting started. And I have no idea what to expect next. But before I sign off, I have just one more thing to say. Ha! In your face, Mimi boy! You thought you could hide, Gallagher? You thought you could keep the truth hidden? Well, sucks to suck, enigmatic failure. You lose! Oh my gosh. Oh, another video done, another Star Rail theory complete. Oh, I get to relax. Let's watch some old Star Rail videos, how about? Wait, what's this? Wait, what? What do you mean Idrilla is also associated with broken mirrors? What do you mean?